Right, I'm just thinking about the wobble that I'm getting on this cabbage. It does sort of wobble backwards and forwards, and that is because the threaded rods are bent, crooked or whatever, and they're wobbling. The linear bearings, the two linear bearings in the side here are loose. I'll show you in my other video, but I'll try to attach that in this video. Can rock. They're not a very close fit on this smooth rod, so that would explain why the rocking of the threaded rod will also rock the carriage, because the carriage like rests on these. And I wanted to show you this again, so I'm just going to move the carriage up using the G command. I think it's particularly when it gets near the top. Right, well that didn't work out because my tripod's moving about all over the place, so I'm just going to come down with a home command and trying to follow it if I can. But particularly watch this. This is like where the extruder is. This actually wobbles. Notice that the pushing pneumatic thing, the one I ordered, the seller had them listed wrongly, and they sent me 4mm when I wanted 6 for my boarding tube, so that's why I can't really fit a boarding tube at the moment. I do have some more unordered. The seller did refund me, but they had the listing wrong, so that's another couple of days waiting. Look at the wobble there. And that's it down at 0. I'll try to get it going up as well. Camera's work is a bit wobbly here, I don't know about. This is on a tripod, but it's only a cheap tripod. So I think you'll probably see the wobble that occurs there. So what I'm thinking, what I been thinking about doing, take this down a bit. So what I'm thinking about doing is actually taking off this top nut, because this is part of an anti-backlash system. There's supposed to be a spring between, like a bottom nut under here and this top nut, and because the two nuts are under pressure, it stops any backlash. But I don't see why you need anti-backlash stuff on the Z carriage, which is basically only moving in one direction while it's building. But this is like a trap nut up here that actually, there's a shape in this plastic cup sort of top. These are all layers of acrylic, I think, quite hard stuff. And there's a shape in there that holds that nut to stop it turning. Now, partly what I've been thinking about is that because this is almost trapped in here, it's quite tightish in a way. So as the threaded rod moves, it's moving the carriage. I just thought I'll take that out totally, that nut, because there's a nut underneath, and the nut underneath is a bit more loose. So that would allow, I thought, the movement of the threaded rod and rely on the wide carriage smooth rod. Now, as I say, the bearings in here are loose, definitely. I'll show you in this other video. I'll try to attach that here. Can rock. They're not a very close fit on this smooth rod. So that would explain why the rocking of the threaded rod will also rock the carriage, because the carriage like rests on these. What I've also been looking at is things like bronze bearings and other things, but I know you can get, because these are two like bearings in here, as hopefully you've seen in that other video I've attached in this video. You can get one long one, and I thought the long one will be less play on this shaft. I'll be measuring this shaft. So here's my digital calipers. These aren't, one thing I don't like about these cheap ones is there's no way of locking the thing, and that's saying 8.2. 8.3. Actually, when I did it earlier it was saying less. I tell you now, it might be because I'm moving it. That's 7.9 odd. So you do want a bit of looseness, I think, in the like guide rod, the smooth rod there. You don't want it too tight. Now I think some of the balls are missing out of here, of these linear bearings. So these are just ideas I'm having to try and solve this rocking of this gantry going across here. I think first of all I'm going to take off these nuts and try it, because I want to look at these bearings and get the measurements just to make sure I'm going to get the right size. But it's almost definitely these LM8 UU sort of size, common size, and I'll see what happens after I've done that. Now I hate doing this because it's quite difficult to get in at the nuts under here, and there's quite a lot of nuts and bolts you have to undo. But that's what I intend to do, take off these nuts and just try it with like a bottom nut that's up under here to see if that will help stop any wobble. Right. Next stage, stopping to take off nuts. Just show you this bearing. This is one of them. Yeah. And you can possibly see, alright, it's supposed to slide up and down, but see how much wobble there can be in that. And I can hear it almost rattling as I move it side to side here. Obviously it's going to slide up and down very easy because there's nothing on it. Noise, well, really these are going slow anyway, so I don't think there'll be much noise on the Z. But it's that rocking there. And very loose indeed. There's no friction at all really there. Okay, we don't want much friction anyway, but you might as well have nothing there because it's not gripping that rod. So here is like the shape for the nut, this nut here that sits in there. Now this can be very hard to do because you have to just get right in there, not too tight, because there's supposed to be a spring goes in here. I've had to take it out because, as I showed you in the other video, it was in two halves, snapped or something, and it was catching, I think, on a threaded rod. But the idea here is that this spring goes against another sort of nut in the bottom, and that's supposed to stop any backlash. Okay, I've taken the nuts out, so there's no nuts and no spring in either side, in the top there, and these are all loose. I've left them loose. I can't be bothered to tighten them up and then re-tighten them. So I'm hoping, as I say, that this will give a bit of free movement, that this rod can move and rely on the smooth rod, although the bearings on the smooth rods, as you've seen, aren't the best, or don't seem to be. Right, I'm going to ask it to go up. And let's see if it wobbles. We might get a bit of wobble actually on the camera, on the tripod. Which is a bugger. Okay, I'll go home now. I'll just show you, you can see the threaded rod is still like wobbling like mad. Oh yes, there is a wobble there. I just noticed it as it was going down near the bottom. So let me go up, say 20 or so. Well, you'll probably see it now, even just going up that 10. So I'm going to use it up and down a few times to see if it gets any better. Well, I've been running it up and down a few times. I'll just show you it going up again. And to me it does look like a bit less wobble on it. Just a second, my camera's getting stuck. Sorry about that, the edge of my camera tripod got jammed there. Tripod device is wobbling all over, so that doesn't help. When I go home now, because I think coming down is better on this tripod anyway. It's smoother. Well, hopefully you can see that. I don't know if it's wishful thinking that the wobble is now less, and that's still with the same bearings in loose. It's less with those nuts taken out. I think it's either right at the top or when it gets almost near the print bed that it's, well, there's my camera jamming again. My tripod, there's like a lip on the edge of my tripod jams on the desk that I've got this on. So sorry about that, but we are coming down almost to the bed now, going to touch off, there we are. Well, to me that looks better, and that's with these nuts taken out. So there's supposed to be a nut in there and like a spring. These are all loose at the moment. I bet when I tighten these nuts back up it's going to start wobbling again. And that's part of the anti-backlash. As I say, I don't see why you need an anti-backlash, but I just want to show you this. Mind you, this is without the anti-backlash unit in. That's me moving it by hand, so it can move. So probably what I'm going to do is actually strip it down even further and have a look at this bottom nut. It's just out of curiosity what's going on in there. Okay, I thought I'd show you. So this is the bottom, and there's basically just another nut here. Normally there'd be a spring on top of that and this other like nut on top that presses down on those two nuts to stop any backlash. And again we've got, it's very hard for me to move this about, but got another sort of captive hole in there for the nut, and then the metal bracket, which is like, oh, that's also like a hexagon shaped nut shape. So we've got a couple of these thin plates which there's like a round thing in there. So that is like just the actual diameter of the shaft here. So that stops, that's in a way what the nut is pushing against. Another thinnish plastic plate. That's a nut shape. So that's hexagon. And I assume they're all hexagon then from there up. Yeah, looks like it, yeah. Okay, so basically it's just that bottom nut there is pushing on that thinnish, like round plated one there, and it's pushing up. I'm just trying to see if there's much movement on the threaded rod. Not much. So I think definitely two new bearings, well one of these big long bearings this side, a big long bearing in the other side, will help resolve this problem. Okay, I've tightened up the balls, got all the things together, but I've left out the nuts on the top of the anti-backlash springs. I've no springs in either side, no nuts on the top. That is the only real change I've made. I'm going to get some of these new bearings on order, longer ones I think. I can get the size, which I should be able to, because it's just going to be double the standard size I think. Now let's go up and we'll see what the wobble's like. If I can keep this tripod reasonably straight. This tripod does wobble, but I think we can see that we'll see the difference between the wobble of any cabbage and now the threaded rods are still wobbling, so it's almost like that top, sorry about the camera wobbling here, this tripod isn't just a cheap one. Basically it's almost this backlash system, this nut on the top, because it's quite tight on the threaded rod, is pushing through all the plastic. That's the way I figure it, pushing through the carriage and making this move and making this wobble. So by taking that out, I think that has solved most of the problem. Once I get some better bearings in there, I think hopefully it will be better. Let's go home just to show you. This is quite near the top, so we're coming down. And if we look along the edge of this plate here, we can usually notice any wobble. Or when I'm looking at it, sometimes if I'm looking a bit from the top, I can notice almost like a bit of reflection as it wobbles to a certain extent. For me, that is a lot more stable by taking those anti-backlash springs and nuts out. And as I would suggest, I'm no expert, but I don't see any point in having them in, because when it's building, the carriage is only going to go up, it's not going to turn round. Oops, I wanted to try and I'll just go up a bit and show you that threaded rod again. And we can see how much that is wobbling there. This is the old ones, so, well, the ones that came with the machine. It's quite bad, but seems like by taking that anti-backlash thing out the top there, the anti-backlash nuts, that it has stopped it wobbling, or just about stopped it wobbling. One more time to finish off. I'll do it from, try and get this from above, excuse me, let me wind this up quick, and then point down at the carriage, zoom out a bit. Sometimes looking along this top surface as well, I can notice a wobble. Now, I don't think it is just wishful thinking that is making me think that the wobbling is almost stopped by taking these two nuts out, the anti-backlash system, and taking the springs out. So there's that side. Let's reach the bed height. And there's that side, no nuts in the top here. As I say, as the VOD wobbles, those forces are moving along the plastic housing here that holds the gantry. So I think that is causing a problem. You might say, well, doesn't the bottom one wobble? Yes, but I think just by having a one on, it's not so bad, and I think that has a bit of free play in this bottom one as well, so it might get away with that. I'll just finish off by saying I'm going to get two longer bearings if I can, that'll fit, and replace the double bearings, which, as you've seen, well, pretty loose.